Kathy, the Celtic Mink Comments, because Grandma got a YouTube channel. So, got another political rant for you. So, buckle up. Hope you stay for the entire thing, because Peace President, my ass. Trump campaigned on being the peace president. Well, if he's hoping to get that Nobel Peace Prize for peace in Ukraine, I don't think it's gonna happen. Instead, he is going to make the biggest land grab in the last 100 years of U.S. history. I think that makes him a war president, not a peace president. So, Nobel Peace Prize in your future, Mr. President. First, he is trying to force Ukraine into accepting a U.S. negotiated ceasefire. This is Rachel. Come on, Rachel, you want to be my co-editor? Give your political opinions? Well, anyway, Rachel wants attention, so like so many other people with pets, I'm just going to let her stay. So, let's go back to Trump and Russia trying to force a peace treaty onto Ukraine, except they forgot to include Ukraine or the European Union in the discussion. Ukraine turned it down. Then, our all-powerful God King President Trump invited Ukraine's president, Mr. Zelensky, to come and talk. In fact, he had him in the Oval Office. He had the entire press there, including someone from TASS, a Russian news reporter. AP can't get in, Reuters can't get in, but apparently now TASS can. Just really good. Good. So, after having them there, all of a sudden, our two beta males, Trump and Vance, decided to gang up on Mr. Zelensky and tell him he was not grateful enough for U.S. aid, that he is never grateful, he has never expressed any gratitude. They tag team him, demeaned him. I have a whole rant about that on another day called Trump Lies, Ukraine Dies, if you're interested. So basically, I think our two beta males basically cut themselves. So what was the result? Well, the result was he united the European Union behind Ukraine. At one point, he cut off Ukraine's access to U.S. intelligence and to Musk's Starlink, and of course, Russia took full advantage of that, further encroaching on Ukraine territory. But I don't think that really proves our superiority and how powerful we are. I think it makes us untrustworthy and an unreliable ally. Who would trust us? So, as of today's news, this is March 13th, Russia has declined the U.S. ceasefire proposal between Ukraine and Russia. So, and meanwhile, it has also been in the news that Trump plans to try to retake the Panama Canal, either by having Panama cede control back to us, or worst case scenario, to invade. Trump has ordered the Pentagon to draw up plans for military scenarios. Plans have been submitted by the admiral in charge of Panama. And meanwhile, Eric Prince, a bigly supporter of Trump, has had his company, BlackRock, buy ports at each end of the canal. None of this speculation of mine is in the news, so wonder if they plan to F up the canal operations to help Trump get his way. Now, Trump is also bound and determined to gain control of Greenland. has tried to buy it from Denmark, who refused to sell. I mean, they've controlled Greenland for the last 800 years. The people there speak Danish. I think that's what the language is called. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I get a lot of things wrong. So, now Greenland is working on becoming independent of Denmark. So what's Trump do? He tries to coerce them into joining the U.S. Now, they have voted for their independence from Denmark. That has passed. And they have told Trump, no thank you, we're not interested. Now Greenland is working with all their political parties to present a single united front against Trump and any of his coercive efforts. But Trump says if he can't get control of Greenland, he plans to invade. Now, we do keep a military base in Greenland, but if he's planning to invade, I think that they wouldn't want to keep our military base there very long. And this could create a scenario of a war between two NATO countries, the U.S. and Denmark. Now, if there were a war, then NATO would come to the side of Denmark, and either the U.S. will have already withdrawn or be kicked out, or NATO will fall apart because of choosing sides. There's only one side to choose, Greenland's, because if the U.S. invades, we are legally in the wrong. So, either way, whatever happens, if there's a war in Greenland, this suits Putin perfectly. I mean, after all, how could he be sad about another war, another fight in NATO, and another division in Europe? Can't fight too many wars on too many fronts. And here we go. Trump keeps saying he wants to make Canada our 51st state. Canada is a sovereign nation. We have no rights to their country. For as in my lifetime, Canada has always had an open border, open trade, and it's up until probably 10 years ago, maybe longer, you could cross the border with just your driver's license or other ID, and you didn't need a passport. Well, now you do. So getting into Canada is a little bit tougher than it used to be, but not unreasonable to ask for a passport. But Trump keeps saying that he imposed tariffs on Canada, our ally and largest trading partner, because fentanyl is coming from Canada to the United States. So far, the news has reported that a total of 43 pounds of fentanyl have been found crossing the Canadian border. That's the size of one duffel bag, and that is the only time fentanyl has been found crossing the northern border. Now, we do have a problem with fentanyl being manufactured and coming up from Mexico, and of course, our homegrown drug makers. And fentanyl is a whole other problem which I'm not prepared to discuss. So, Canada has said, elbows up. They are boycotting all American products. American liquor has been taken off Canadian shelves and sent back to the U.S. for refunds. And of course, employees of U.S. liquor distilleries have been laid off. And for all you beer snobs out there, well, there's going to be less beer from Canada coming to the United States. So, in addition to boycotting liquor and taking it off the shelves, they are, as much as possible, not buying any American-made goods, and they are avoiding tourism to the United States. Those who are traveling south have chosen to go to the Caribbean islands or to Mexico. So I guess Florida and all those southern states with nice warm climates, guess you're losing your tourists. Now Trump says he plans to use the tariffs to force Canada to submit by bankrupting them through our tariffs on them. Well, so far, the news says Canada is looking to the European Union for new trade partners. They are also making deals with China. And they are even looking towards South America and Africa for larger and better deals. Because if you can't trust your southern neighbor, then you better be looking elsewhere. But so far, the only economy Trump seems to be tanking is the United States. Thanks to these tariffs on Canada, China, the European Union, we are suffering a decline in sales. Inflation has returned. Prices are going up. People are scared, and when people get scared, people don't spend money. At the beginning of quarter one, at the end of Biden administration, the economy was expected to expand by 3%. Now that Trump has been in office for the last 6 weeks, he has so far managed to turn that gain into a negative 3% contraction. There have been layoffs of employees at private companies. Thanks to DOGE, there have been thousands of federal employees laid off. And they're getting screwed over because they're getting letters saying, you were let go because of poor performance, which makes them ineligible to apply for unemployment. Good. And then if they get interviewed for any other jobs, and they are asked if you were ever laid off for poor performance, they have to say yes. It doesn't matter whether their performance was exemplary or poor. Thanks to Elon Musk, every letter says they were let go for poor performance. Thousands of employees across our government apparently can't do their jobs, except when they find out they have laid off the wrong people, like the nuclear specialists who manage our nuclear stockpiles. Those are highly trained specialists. They have laid off the people studying bird flu, trying to get that contained so that our chickens no longer need to be culled, and eventually that egg prices will come back down as we have healthy chickens again. In fact, some idiot suggested that everybody get their own chickens. I don't know about you, but any animal, and I don't know much about chickens, they would require a coop. They would require food, in addition to free roaming, which would annoy your neighbors. Lots of residential areas are not zoned to allow farm animals. And I think by the time you're done buying the chickens, setting up the coop, making sure you have a rooster, which are noisy as hell, by the way. They don't just crow at dawn. They crow all day, letting you know the cock's on the walk. But after you're done doing all that, how can the price of eggs be cheaper? The setup costs alone would be ridiculous. If you really want to know, Google it. I'm sure you can find it. I know Renee Christine is doing homestead videos now. So, try Renee Christine's videos. Maybe you can find something there on keeping chickens, although I'm sure there are lots of YouTubes on the topic. But back to any war on Canada would require us to actually draft men again. Now, I'm not sure that college deferments would even exist the way they did during the Vietnam War back in the 60s and into the first year or two of the 70s. But men are still required to register for the draft when they turn 18. We would need an army because if we're going to go and take all these places, and of course, it would be the MAGA boys who would get drafted, the poor boys, all the poor boys, whether they're MAGA boys or not, they would be called up, and it would be their job to be cannon fodder. I mean, that's what frontline soldiers are. You got to respect them. They are battle trained. They are sent there to do a job. It's not a very safe job, and you have to be prepared for casualties or crippling accidents, because war is not a nice thing. You can watch a silent movie called Wings, made in 1929. It was about the horrors of World War I. It's very graphic. It also shows the dogfights, used actual footage from World War I of dogfights, and other airplane scenes, according to a film buff I know, were all shot in a single day. So, and of course, we have lots and lots of other more modern movies, rescuing, Saving Private Ryan, and so on. The horror wars are real, and I would not wish them on anybody. But since corruption is so high in this country, I mean, Cadet Bonespurs Trump was able to buy his way out of service. And of course, I assume all the other rich boys will be able to buy their way out of the service. But poor boys don't have money, so they won't be buying their way out. So, if they were serious about all these wars, I think they'll be reinstating the draft. So, what would Canada and the rest of the world do? I don't know. How many Americans would cross the border to fight on Canada's side? I don't know. How many Americans would not support the soldiers? And wouldn't this be an illegal order from the president? Wouldn't it be the job of the army to resist an illegal order like that? Depends on what Pete Hegseth, our dear Secretary of State, a man who thinks women don't belong in service, that black men and women don't belong in service, and they should all be gotten rid of, and they don't want anybody trans in the service anymore. And when they went to court on that one and they were asked why, their lawyers showed up unprepared because they couldn't tell you how many trans members were in the service, and they couldn't tell you why they should be removed from the service for cause. So whether or not you agree with that, the service still consists of men and women of all colors in a variety of occupations providing service to this country. And while I'm a pacifist, I still believe that we need to respect our army. Our army serves a purpose as a peacekeeping tool. Although personally, I think the military-industrial complex is a little too tight, and our Pentagon has a little too much money. So, like I said, this is the most blatant land grab by the U.S. in 100 years. So, did the zillionaires and captains of industry think they could control this madman they call Trump? I hope those tax cuts that they're trying to get for the top 1% are worth it. So far, Trump has tanked our stock markets. He has tanked our economy. Prices are rising due to his tariffs. Inflation is back due to his tariffs. Interest rates are high. And when people get scared, they don't spend money. So between the layoffs of people who had jobs and the people who aren't spending money because they're afraid they might be next, or maybe they already are, and they have to conserve what money they have and take whatever job or jobs they can find to support themselves, assuming there are even jobs to be had. So, I hope Trump's crashing the economy, and like I said, crashing that stock market. It's worth it to the zillionaires for the new tax cut of $4.5 trillion. That's going to be added to the deficit. And we already have a deficit of about $34 trillion. Anyway, I know it's up there. So, to support that deficit, we sell treasury bills. The T-bills, whatever. And they come in as bonds as low as $25. And of course, there are much larger denominations, probably $10,000 and more. Not my area of expertise. But basically, so if we want to support our debt, we have to sell bonds. And if Trump pisses off the rest of the world, who's going to buy our bonds? Who's going to support our debt? I mean, Trump, as businessman, bankrupt at least 6 companies, 2 casinos. I mean, who the hell bankrupts a casino? The house always wins. But he did it. He stiffed his contractors, called himself the king of debt, did everything he could to wiggle out of paying his debt, refinanced, and eventually when the American banks wouldn't touch him anymore, started getting financing from Russia. Wonder if Putin had anything to do with that. I mean, Trump does have his nose so far up Putin's ass that his head is brown. Because you can't say anything bad about Putin. He is a man to be admired according to Trump. But anyway, so much on that topic. But like I said, if he pisses off the world, and he's already effed up our government through Doge, would we be trusted? And if they decide to default on our treasury bills, then nobody's going to want to buy them. The U.S. will no longer be the most reliable bonds to invest in the world of governments selling bonds. Let's see, I've already told you about the contraction of the economy. Anyway, this businessman, this piss-poor businessman who never ran a business on his own without utterly destroying it and getting bailed out by Daddy more than once, squandered money, and is now taking money from Russia. So, I don't know why the zillionaires and captains of industry are putting up with this man's shit. I mean, are the tax cuts worth it? I'm really wondering when the cabinet is going to decide that he's too crazy, too out of control, too determined to become our God King for real, that maybe they'll invoke the 25th Amendment to relieve him of his duties. Because as long as we have Republicans running both houses, I don't think we're going to get another impeachment through the House and a trial in the Senate, because these people have ceded their power to their God King, Donald Trump. All hail the king. So, I have no idea what's going on in the news. It moves too fast. I have another video I broke into 3 parts that I was going to put part 1 up tonight, but I'll be putting this one up first and then the other 3-parter on satire called A Modest Proposal, based on Jonathan Swift's essay on why the Irish should sell their babies to the rich English to eat. That way the Irish are relieved of the children they no longer need to support. The English have a new food source, and the Irish make a little money because, let's face it, Ireland is poor, and those rich English lords hated seeing the beggars in the street asking for money because they had no food. And so, using satire, Jonathan Swift reduced it to its most absurd element: the poor selling their children for food for the rich. Oh, and I don't remember the complete context, but he wasn't too happy with the Irish politicians who wouldn't or couldn't do anything about the situation of the poor Irish. So, gotta ask, are we winning yet? Are you richer than you were 3 months ago? Is life better? Is your job secure? Are we just going to become that pure white country minus all the people that have been othered by our God King Donald Trump, who seems to think that a country that's 44% white could be relieved of its many multi-ethnic citizens, our black citizens who are descendants of slaves, black immigrants from the islands, from Africa, Asian immigrants from countries like India, China, and I'm sorry, my geography's really bad, other countries in Southeast Asia, Korea, Vietnam. I'm sure there are many more, and my geography's very bad. But there was a time people wanted to come to this country. There were opportunities here. There was a chance to get an education. If you couldn't, if you worked hard, you could make life better for your children by making sure they went to school and got that free public education. Another thing they're trying to take away from us. But that's not a land grab, and that requires a whole other video with a whole other rant. So, I don't know who's winning. I know I'm not. I know that we are doing urban prepping. Our pantry just used to keep 2 or 3 items in case we ran out of something in the middle of the week. Now we're getting worried. And now we're making plans, yes, to stockpile. Not horribly, but to keep more on hand, just in case it's not in the stores. You want to make sure you've got something at home you can eat. Canned goods, canned meat, pasta, rice, sugar, honey lasts forever. I mean, we're just starting our research. And of course, you want the food secured so that the mice can't get into it. Now, I tell you I'm the Celtic mink, because I had mink for 20 years. And I had one pet farm mink who was named Brian Boru after a very famous Irish warrior, king who actually, in his lifetime, actually united the clans of Ireland. Of course, when he died, they split up again. So, Brian Boru did not live up to the name of being a warrior, so he became known as Brian Boru the Brat Mink. And back then, we had 3 bins of dried food, soups mostly, and the bins were locked. But my little brat boy was clever, and he just unlocked those bins, climbed into them. Oh, they must have smelled really good because he shredded every package in there, seeing what was in it. And he did it to all 3 bins of dried food. Now, of course, Brian Boru has long since passed us over the Rainbow Bridge to wherever animal souls go, and I'm not going to argue with you about pets, rescue, or animal souls, because I've made my contributions to the ferret community and the mink community, and I have donated extensively to wildlife and even some dog rescues. Of course, there have to be no-kill dog rescues. I'm such a purist. Oh, animal rescue, that's another whole topic that I shouldn't be ranting about tonight either. So, in summary, our peace president is a war president. He is effing around with Ukraine, not supporting them anymore, blaming them for the Russian invasion. Blame the victim of abuse. It's always their fault. He wants to gain control of Greenland, by hook or by crook, by money or war. He doesn't seem to care. He wants to take back control of the Panama Canal. And his buddy Eric Prince has bought 2 ports on each end of the Panama Canal. So that doesn't sound too good either. They're creating military scenarios to invade if they can't force them to cede control of the canal back to us. I mean, Greenland doesn't want to join us. Panama Canal just wants to keep their country of Panama. And Canada certainly doesn't want to join us. They're a sovereign nation with their own culture and traditions. I mean, the United States is big. If you live in the Midwest, you get one culture. You live in Florida or Louisiana or Texas, you get a whole different culture, different foods, different mixes of people. I mean, my name is common as dirt around here. I went to classes with anywhere from 3 to 5 other girls with some variation of the name Kathy. Okay, I'm just rambling at this point. So, I'm Kathy, the Celtic Mink. Celtic Mink comments, because Grandma got a YouTube channel. If you stay to the end, I hope you'll like, comment. Really be great if you subscribe. We'd love to get up to 10 subscribers. We've got a whole 2 hours of view time so far, and we've got about 10 political rants up now. I've got opinions. Love if you go look